They're getting stronger! But, hey, that's all they have. They only have the screeching, and if you can make it past that, you can make it past anything. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Gadowski of WeAreChange.org. Lots to get into, especially with all the cancellation news. Some latest information about, the quarantine camps. Yep, we're going to get into those worldwide, as well as some very troubling news, not only for Christmas, but also for this long-awaited jab that everyone is waiting for, just like Santa Claus. And it looks like Santa Claus is not coming, even with some legitimate concerns expressed by Bill Gates. So yeah, lots to get into today. And just as a daily reminder, please don't let your politics get in the way of your humanity. I know this message is going to go on many deaf ears, but it's okay to support anyone you want to support. You can believe whatever you want to believe. And having anger or hatred towards someone's beliefs that are different than yours, well, that just essentially makes you a brainless zombie retard. And let's be honest with each other, there's a lot of that going around nowadays. It's like an actual zombie infestation, as exemplified by the now breaking news that Glenn Greenwald is resigning from the news organization that he helped found. We're talking about The Intercept, which Glenn Greenwald said, quote, "The same trends of repression, censorship, and ideological homogeneity plaguing the national press generally has engulfed the media outlet I co-founded, culminating in censorship of my own articles." And then Glenn Greenwald goes on how his own article was censored by an editor at his news organization that he found, where the editor refused to publish it unless it had critical sections removed from it that made Joe Biden look bad. This was, of course, the same candidate that the editor in mention here was supporting. No surprise there. But this is just another example of just how some people just care about power rather than, of course, the truth. It also looks like a similar event unfolded at Spotify, where Joe Rogan decided to host Alex Jones on his podcast. This, of course, created a massive uproar and screeching from many individuals demanding censorship immediately, and it looks like Spotify took down the episode temporarily. Then there was another backlash against the original backlash. It looks like the episode was put back up. It is still currently available, but it just highlights the kind of bipolar situation that we're all involved in. But watching that episode personally myself, I do have to say Joe Rogan did do a good job trying to fact check almost everything that Alex Jones said. Now, most of the stuff that Alex Jones said was absolutely correct, factual, and shocking in some ways. Other stuff was exaggerated and sometimes proven not to be true by Joe Rogan. Alex did drink very heavily during the interview, but predominantly was right on a lot of key issues. Joe Rogan even posted this on Instagram recently, saying that he knew people were going to criticize this episode. That's why he, quote, fact-checked every single crazy thing he, referring to Alex Jones, said. He said that he was accused of anti-conholio sickness jab conspiracy theories, specifically the reference to how 80% of people who are a part of the trial jab of the conholio sickness, specifically how 80% of them got sick. This is a topic that Joe Rogan decided to highlight by literally playing a video clip of Bill Gates admitting to it. Yeah, and that's why in this video we are going to be going over that clip as well as other important information that you need to know about the conholio sickness jab. Of course, words that we have to use. So, of course, this episode doesn't get fully taken down and censored again. Sadly, that's a problem that we have to deal with, as well as, fully being demonetized. And that's why we started to work with companies that I personally like, that I personally use, that allow us to exist as an independent media organization, and one of them is VPN City. Yes, for the low price of just even about $2, $3 a month, you can get access to all international destinations almost everywhere in the world, which will allow you unrestricted access to the worldwide internet, since, of course, many governments and special interests censor what you see online from your geolocation. Well, you could spoof that with a VPN. It also adds an extra layer of privacy, an extra layer of security, which I think is pretty crucial in today's modern day and age. If you don't like it, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. I personally use them. I like them. I think you will too. Check out VPN City. Also, our Flamethrower Rageathon event is selling out fast. Make sure you reserve your tickets before they go. Again, seating is, of course, limited. And it's not just seating. You're not going to be sitting. You're going to be shooting a flamethrower. You're going to be smashing up a car. If you ever wanted to know what it feels like to be Antifa, just going haywire, bashing up cars or whatever it may be, well, this is your chance, especially if you are near Manchester, New Hampshire. Come one, come all to our F-It 2020 bash. I think we're also going to be doing a story time immersive experience during this entire event. I was literally working on this yesterday. I'm super excited about it. Hope to see you there this coming up November 4th and November 7th. 2 separate events there. Now, in other absolutely ridiculous news, we have a new trailer today for a movie called Songbird by Michael Bay, and it describes a fictional scenario where the United States is under 213 weeks of lockdown from, can you guess it? Can you guess from what? From Conholio Sickness 23. No joke. Here's a little bit of the trailer.
The 213th week of lockdown.
A grim new reality emerges.
COVID-23 has mutated.
Beginning thermal scan. Thermal scan normal.
A horrifying new development
New
today.
data confirmed.
And holy cow, talk about fear-mongering and predictive programming. A lot of the depictions in this movie trailer literally highlight some events that unfolded in the world, specifically regarding China, with people being forced quarantined and being locked up in their own homes, detention centers. And again, just when you thought Hollywood couldn't become more exploitative, well, here we are today. And of course, there's also a 2020 stripper scene, which, again, what else can we say here? But the topic of quarantine camps don't just happen in Michael Bay movies. They're also discussed by government officials like we saw here in New Zealand.
That all cases, confirmed cases, are to be managed in a quarantine facility. Now, this is different to how positive cases were managed when we were last at levels 4 and indeed 3, and shows how serious we are about limiting any risk of ongoing transmission, even in self-isolation and including to others in the household. And it will help us avoid any further inadvertent spread into the community as part of our overall response.
I think it's only fair to categorize the New Zealand's government's approach towards this entire situation as the most extreme compared to a lot of other countries, but this type of quarantining, especially from travel, is nothing new and is common in many places in the world. In Vietnam, you have to quarantine and you're given a choice of paying $5 a day to be housed in a government facility, or you could pay extra to be housed inside of a hotel of your choosing. Canada has set up their own isolation facilities, as they're calling them, and has been paying to accommodate international travelers who are returning to Canada in hotel rooms and other lodging facilities for over 14 days during their quarantine period. Now there are 11, quote, federally designated locations for people to quarantine. And this is specifically for, quote, residents who test positive for this sickness and are finding challenges isolating at home. And for right now, the decision to stay at this facility is voluntary. Unlike New Zealand, where it is mandatory, along, of course, with tests as well, as described by the New Zealand Prime Minister.
What do we do if someone refuses to be tested? Well, they can't now. If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the test.
And we have to consider these very strong approaches and these very strong measures with a government locking you up for 14 days, all based on a test that have shown many times to not be reliable, just like we saw with the NFL and many other public individuals who tested positive with one test and then quickly negative with another right afterwards. For an example, just like we saw with the NFL, where 77 players tested positive and then upon another test tested negative. And the ridiculousness continues, especially in the United Kingdom, where politicians are announcing that they will literally break up Christmas dinners. Yes, we have the police commissioner of West Midlands in the United Kingdom coming out, announcing that he is the new Grinch in chief. Yes, he kind of even looks like the Grinch a little bit. I'm being facetious here, obviously. But he is warning families who are celebrating Christmas will be broken up if officers find out that they're not following social distancing and lockdown procedures. Yes, the police officers in the United Kingdom who have nothing better to do will be investigating Christmas gathering, as they, quote, will be enforcing rules handed down by the government, which he himself says currently this officer is in charge of an area that is under, quote, tier 2 restrictions, meaning people cannot mix with any other households in this current period of time. I mean, people are talking about a war on Christmas, but yeah, this is a little absurd. Not to be outdone, California, of course, set up their new mandatory guidelines for Christmas and Thanksgiving as well, with just more absolute insane rules, specifically detailing how people must wear a mask at all times inside of their homes unless they are eating, how no more than 3 households, including your own, may gather, how the names and addresses of all those attending must be listed, all the gatherings must be held outside, and you could only go to the bathroom inside if it is frequently sanitized. And the rules go on in absolute absurdity. By the way, these are the same politicians and the same government that literally was cheering out the cries of Black Lives Matter, encouraging protests. Yes, protests, some of which that have turned to riots. They're A-okay, but you having Christmas and Thanksgiving? No, that's over the line. And of course, this entire insanity is not just affecting our holidays, it's also affecting our elections, as we are finding out today that polling places in Iowa are closing because of the conholio sickness. This is the first time something like this happened, but people are saying it could happen more, and it could potentially have an effect on our elections. But according to many, quote, experts, the mainstream media, and Donald Trump, everything's going to go away when we have that magic jab. A jab who in its trial period is finding to have adverse reactions. Here's Bill Gates even admitting this fact, as recently highlighted by Joe Rogan from Bill Gates's own mouth.
Moderna vaccines sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that, and you know, the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for the things that are,
they're not super severe. There was no permanent damage. Again, how do we know? How do we know that there won't be any kind of long-term kind of side effects here? And we have to understand here that it definitely seems like Bill Gates is just talking out of his buttocks, mainly because of the many trial runs that were run here by these big pharma companies. They have been absolutely silent about the details. They have been very unaccountable, very secretive. There has been very little transparency. There has been no numbers, no data, no facts actually released, only very generalized language. And it's not just one big pharma company or one country dealing with adverse effects, it's a lot of them, to the extent where many of the trials had to be stopped. Yes, the trials for the jab that everyone thinks in the mainstream media that Donald Trump thinks is going to help and solve everything literally have been stopped by many big pharma companies because of the effects. NIH, the major British regulator, even came out saying that they are very concerned about the various serious side effects that they are seeing. Pfizer is reporting, quote, moderate side effects. China is saying that they're seeing no adverse reactions at all. The AstraZeneca studies have been stopped. And again, the major component here that we have to understand here is that we're getting very little information to exactly what is going on. A lot of these companies are being tight-lipped. One of the people who documents what happened during his trial run reports a fever of more than 103. He went to a hospital to try to figure out what was going on. They released him, and then afterwards he fainted in his own home. Now again, we still don't know the long-term side effects here or what's going to be happening down the line, but this guy literally that went through this, he's still coming out and is saying that he is still a believer in this jab. And I, of course, would have some skepticism, as we've been saying from the very beginning, that there never was this type of jab for the general category of sickness that we're dealing with. Whether it's SARS or MERS, there never has been an antidote, a jab against them. It would be a first of its kind ever jab that existed like this. And we also have to understand a lot of this is also happening in the backdrop of many of these companies who are developing this jab having absolutely no liability at all. And when you have big major corporations facing no consequences for their actions at all, you have to understand that there's no real kind of incentive as there would be if they did have liability for what they put out there. Another thing to really consider here is, why is Bill Gates treated as some kind of medical expert when he is not a medical doctor? He is one of the world's richest men in this entire world, a man who, by the way, pledged to give all of his money to charity, but has since doubled it. He's also known for being an extremely cutthroat businessman that did whatever it took to get ahead. That's why he's one of the world's richest people, who is also extremely heavily invested in jab companies and big pharma. So I'm sorry, but if I'm getting my news from someone, if I'm getting my expertise advice from someone, there shouldn't be any conflict of interest. There should be liability for what a company puts out there, just like anything. And when we're looking at the situation of what's absolutely unfolding here, it is mind-boggling and extremely confusing. If we look at the latest numbers that are coming in, we're seeing countries like Czechoslovakia being massively hit and affected by this. Meanwhile, Sweden still all the way down there, the lowest numbers in Europe with the least restrictions. But now somehow we need more restrictions to deal with all of this. And again, just like I've been saying from the very beginning, this is an extremely fast-moving, complex, confusing situation that just leaves a lot of people just scratching their head. There's a lot of anomalies. There's a lot of things that don't add up. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. But if there's one thing that I could convey to you that I've been saying from the very beginning is, please do your own research and homework. Don't believe anyone else out there until you actually do the fact-checking yourself. It is more critically important than ever for you to have your life in your own hands by making the proper decisions for yourself. Whether it's being cautious, whether it's worrying about your mental health, your physical health, the only person who is going to help you is you yourself. Again, I'll just be very bluntly honest with everyone. It's very difficult to make sense of what's going on here. And I don't think there's a clear explanation. I don't think there's an easy one-all answer to what we're experiencing and what we're going to be experiencing in the future. But moving forward, the best thing you could do is keeping your eyes and ears open, paying attention to the details, and following the story closely, which we promise to do here on this independent media organization. If you thought I was wrong on any of the issues that I brought up, let me know why in the comment section below. I always appreciate your constructive feedback. I always appreciate you guys engaging, expressing yourself, and showing me information that I wouldn't normally see if it wasn't for you. And again, this whole show, this whole channel, this whole organization exists mainly because of you participating and sharing this video with your friends and family members. Because you guys still do that, this is why I'm here, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.